The human brain is wired to respond to well crafted stories. In fact, we have seen time and again that storytelling is the best way to capture your audience's attention and forge close personal bonds with them. Which is why, for any business or brand, telling a brand story is not just about how your products or services exist in the world. It's about who you are and how you add value to people's lives. A compelling brand story gives your audience a way to connect with you, not just as a business, but one person to another. Today, we have with us Rakhi Kapoor, an entrepreneur, speaker, and author who published her first book, The Girl Who Was Left Behind, in 2017. In what has been a remarkable journey since, she has gone on to publish 17 more books, earning her a reputation of being a serial author. Rakhi also rose to prominence with the success of her two books, The Horseshoe Man and Decimus, which was inspired by the journey of her husband Vijay Kapoor, who founded Derby Apparels, one of the most popular men's apparel brands in South India. Rakhi, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to having a chat with me.
Pleasure is all mine. So, Rakhi, your first book was published in 2017, right? And
Right.
since then, you have gone on to publishing 17 more books in less than 3 years. So,
Yeah.
it's been an absolutely incredible journey for you. So, I want to understand how and where it all actually started for you.
Okay. It's like this, Sushant. I always wanted to be an author. Like it was something that my father, he'd put me in front of a typewriter and he'd say, type. So when I was very little, you have to type. And then computers were just coming in. Okay. So he's like, you have to know how to type. And write. And I'm a Bengali by birth. So, in
Mhm.
Bengali households, everybody is reading, writing, singing.
Absolutely.
I wanted to be a writer, but it was just not happening. Then I wanted to start with writing a book on pregnancy because that's what my expertise is. I'm a
Mhm.
physiotherapist and I specialize in these antenatal sessions. I have a center which started out as the first of its kind in South India again.
Right.
But writing is easy and yet not easy if the thoughts don't flow and you don't start.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's it. It was like, I was lost. Honestly, I was lost. And then finally, I go on this trip to Nepal on a trek.
Mhm.
And I tell you, just like I failed to miserably write a book, I failed to miserably complete the trek. I came back all alone, 12,000 feet, crying, wailing, weeping because I failed. All my trek mates completed. My husband was on the trek and he left me behind. That is why it
Wow.
is the girl who was. And
All
I came
right.
back. Yeah, now you know.
Right.
And that's when I decided that, wow, this is a beautiful story. I don't have to sit too hard and think about what to imagine. It's all mine.
Mhm.
And that's it. That's how it started. Girl who was left behind, girl who never looked back, and never looked back since then.
Right. As the saying goes, some of the best stories actually come from personal experiences. You don't have to look anywhere else. You just have to look within. There are so many stories each one of us actually has. Right.
Yeah.
But still, from there on, you have gone on to publish 17 more books. Now, it takes immense dedication and motivation and discipline for an author for a writer to complete even one book from start to finish. And that's something a lot of our writers actually complain about. How did you manage to build this structure in your life? Because I have heard from authors that it's not just something. It's not just about your writing or being an author. It's your whole way of life that has to change. You have to build that structure into your life. And how did you go about managing that?
Okay. So the first two books were connected to my treks. So that was
Mhm.
again another trekking experience. So the girl who never looked back came from there. Then, like I said, I always wanted to write a book on pregnancy, and that's
Mhm.
when it started. This book called "Expecting Daddy Delivers." This is the
Right.
first of its kind by an Indian author for an Indian man,
Oh yeah,
because
it
I
is.
felt that the men were clueless more than the woman. It was the men who didn't know what to do in the labor room, what to do during the pregnancy. So they would
Absolutely.
attend my session, and I wrote this book. Now, you see, for 40 years, if you have dreamt of doing something, and
Mhm.
finally, it's like that moment of light when it comes, and I think the floodgates just open. I
Mhm.
will be talking about this creative instinct and what and how do you treat it in my next book,
No.
which stands about failures. This book talks about failures, where how
Mhm.
people can channelize. It's just not about writing. It's about
Mhm.
art, it's about entrepreneurship, it's about any idea. How do you harness this energy, these ideas, and how do you implement it in reality?
Mhm.
So that was one, that was the start. Yes, a writer's lifestyle changes. Trust me, I used to be an extrovert. I can talk to a lamppost, a car, a stranger on the road, and now suddenly I'm just hidden behind my laptop. I don't have many friends. My social life is gone, and I had a lot of balancing to do because I handled three careers. The writing was the third one,
Right.
so it took a lot of discipline, challenge, and I have to tell you, which other writers should not do. I really went overboard. 17, I mean 18 books, two more coming. I hurt my back. I have a vertigo problem. Don't go that side. So discipline, a lot of discipline. And yes, your whole life changes because you have to close the clutter of everything around the world
Yeah.
because your mind starts talking, and
Mhm.
you have to address the idea and the voice of the mind to get a productive book out. So a lot of silence and a lot of introspection and a lot of connection with your own self and prioritizing what is important for you in life. That's how you get to
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Besides dedication, motivation,
And it's
sleepless.
also, like in this day and age, especially when, you're just like one notification away from losing your focus, on what you're doing, like one phone notification away from losing all your
Yeah.
focus. It's very impressive that you managed to, fit in writing so many books as the third part of your career. uh, it's your third career literally, and
It
that's
is my
it's
pleasure.
extremely impressive that way. But I also have to ask, like, you've also juggled different genres, right? You
Right.
started out with fiction, started out with your own personal story, and then you've done business books, you've done non-fiction. So,
Yeah.
what has your process been like? Did you always want to explore different genres, categories, or is this just something that came naturally to you when once you started writing, you had another idea and you pursued that?
See, it's like this. Like you said, it's about storytelling. It's about
Mhm.
how you tell your stories. So certain stories, like if like my readers, when they read my fiction and they read my non-fiction version, they're a little confused. They don't know which one they are reading
Yeah.
because even in the non-fiction books there is a little story. And through
Right.
my fiction, like just recently, this is this book called Dovic Story, which is doing very well. It
Mhm.
talks about the pandemic, but it also talks about global warming, climate change, and a lot of big issues. So
Mhm.
actually, it's fiction, but the core crust of it is sustainability.
Right.
So it's like this, when you get an idea, like your idea talks to you, anything in life, when you have an idea, you want to put it out to the people out there. Now you
Absolutely.
have to see how to make it interesting and how do you connect it,
Mhm.
and then you see whether this is better put out as a fiction so that the story comes out really powerful, or
Mhm.
you want the message really powerful and the story at the background. So
Right.
that's how I balance both.
Well put. So I want to move on and focus a little bit on a couple of books that you published,
Yeah.
which is the Horseshoe Man and Decimus,
Yeah.
right? So I think both of them went on to do really well on Amazon. They were like bestsellers on Amazon as well.
Yeah.
So what was the idea behind these books specifically? How did you want to start writing about the brand Derby, which is what the book is about?
Yeah. Brand Derby is I am also an active participant. We co-founded the brand together. But
Mm-hmm.
like I was also doing other things, so my husband takes the front seat in it. And to save my marriage, I took the back seat. It's very difficult for people to work together, then come back home, and two people with such headstrong people and ambitious people. So
Mm-hmm.
we had to find that balance. Now
Absolutely.
the thing was about Derby. The fun thing was there was somebody else actually who came forward. By the time I'd already started writing,
Mm-hmm.
and it was miserable. Like I told you, the first book he left me behind, so I had to write, and I was writing one book, two book, three books, and then somebody offered to write about him,
Mhm.
and he said, but my wife is a writer. So he came back and he told me one day, he came back and said, see, there is this author and she wants to write about me. I said, no way. I mean, it's very sad. Your wife is a writer. I think she should be writing about you. And the horseshoe man was to rub it on his face. You left me behind and I'm going to glorify you. Okay, jokes apart. half of it is his story, half of it is my story, and half of it is but the whole message, like again I said, is the story of the brand. It's the
Mm-hmm.
story of struggles, it's the story of startups, it's the story of all the challenges, and how do you face it. So I thought this was a very beautiful story. So again, if you read this book, Noshant, you really will not know whether to put it in a fiction or to
Right.
put it in a non-fiction
Right.
genre.
I think
And
yeah,
yeah.
that's also like really important because a lot of brands don't do this. They focus
Hmm.
more on the bottom line, the campaigns and the metrics and that sort of thing. Then they sort of lose track about the connection with the audience as such. Like exposing who is behind the brand rather. So how important do you think a brand story is to enable that connection with a brand's audience, let's say?
Okay, so in this book itself, I started the book this way with the Horseshoe Man. Is like when you travel or you walk into a mall or you walk into some place, and you look at the store of the brand that you shop from, or
Mhm.
you look at the car and you own the same car and you see it on the road or you see a symbol. Don't you connect? You connect. Like, oh, this is the car that I drive back home.
Mhm.
And you just walk into the store, if it's a clothing brand, whatever, even a perfume, you're like, oh, I connect. So that's when I thought that what is the next connect, like our customers, like being first time entrepreneurs, it has been a startup, and
Mhm.
we've interacted, like me and my husband, we have literally sold shirts and trousers to the customers. He has
Mhm.
dusted the store and swept the store. When I
Yep.
was pregnant, I have done house visits. Like there
Right.
was this shirts and blazers to be delivered to somebody who was traveling to the US. So at 10:30 in the night, I delivered it personally at home. So we met our customers and we grew from there. And that's when I thought that it was time to just, make that bonding a little strong and reach out to them and to tell them who we are. So when you just know a name, like you just see Derby, then you see, okay, who are the people behind it? That
Mhm.
gives you a personal connect. Then it doesn't become a clothing brand, it doesn't
Exactly.
become a car, it just doesn't become a thing.
Mhm.
It becomes a persona thing, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
Like
Personal thing.
yeah, for example, like the Tata Industries, the person behind
Right.
it, Ratan Tata, he
Right.
is the face of the brand itself, and he's done a great job
Exactly.
in exposing his brand
Right.
story to the world through multiple books. Again, it's a very interesting thing that he did. Right. So I want to ask you now that you actually published your brand story in the form of a book. How has it really helped you sort of grow that brand? Because publishing a book sort of gives you that platform to expose your brand story to your audience worldwide, right? So how do
Right.
you say it has actually helped you in that sense?
Okay. See, I'll tell you what, Prashant, at the end of the day, it's about connecting to your customer.
Hmm.
Okay. It's about connecting. There are two ways in which this has helped us. One is connecting to the customers, and the next thing is like it is connecting to other aspiring people who may not be your customers but who are looking at your journey and who want to be entrepreneurs. Now that is how my second book, the same this thing called Decimus came up.
Decimus, yeah.
Trust me, there are business schools all over the world which are doing brilliant. My own husband has been associated with Stanford, but
Hmm.
I came up with something very basic. I mean, no qualms that these business schools are doing their best and they're giving the best that they can. But
Hmm.
for an entrepreneur, there are some simple things. There was a death of an entrepreneur that shook me up a lot recently.
Hmm.
His committing suicide was so painful. I was like, what was so important for him to give up on himself?
Hmm.
He's like, he's left his whole brand, his employees, his stores, everybody orphaned. And that's when I went on to write this book called Decimus. So there are two things that happens. Yeah.
Hmm.
One is your customer starts to connect and feel, and trust me, like wherever Vijay goes or I say Derby, they're like, oh, I like the brand, can we take a picture, and I'm going to come back. Then they pick up pictures, they take pictures in the store and then they send it to us.
Right.
And with Decimus, we've had entrepreneurs reaching out to us
Right.
saying, I want to build a brand, I want to start something new. So you see, you are inspiring, because finally at the end of the day, like you said, you brought up Ratan Tata, and I
Mhm.
swear I look up to him, because when you get, you have to give, and
Absolutely.
only when you give, the whole equation is done. There's a flow of energy. So
Mm-hmm.
these books are about reaching out to those people, you know, to everyone, not those people, our customers and people. So we have been graced that all the hard work and the challenges have been fruitful. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's time to give back. So what do you give back? You give back your experience, you give back hope, you give back tips, you give back ways to lead and guide people.
Yeah, and I guess that's the most important thing for from the reader's perspective as well. They want to listen to that. They want to see those personal struggles. They want to see who the face is behind the brand and what they went through to actually build the brand as well. And yeah, really well put over there. Uh, so I also want to focus on these books that you've actually written. Were there any specific things that you did to establish a great brand story around in that particular book, in those particular books? Because if you see, generally good brand stories, they need to be sort of based in truth, originality, and sort of expose the human side behind the brand as well. And you have done that really well through your book. So were there any specific things that you did within the book to ensure that it comes out like that?
Okay. Um, the one more point that I wanted to highlight in the last questions, I'm going to bring it up now, that the purpose of any brand to be successful is just not about your balance sheet. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about where you're going to get so many years from now and not about numbers. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about pennies and paisas. It's about purpose. The brand has to have a purpose. You have to have a higher purpose. So Derby, let me tell you the way it started. It is there in the book, the whole story, that my husband was actually humiliated. We were courting. I was 15 and he was 21, and I was in school and he just started working. And he was humiliated in a place because, they said a salesman cannot enter this place,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to be dressed properly. And where could someone who's just started earning afford to, start wearing good clothes? And especially those time, like 20 years back, when it was not easy, expensive, or good brands were very expensive. We didn't have that many options in India. So the purpose for him, it started with, I want affordable, stylish clothes for everyone, because that adds to a lot of confidence.
Right.
Adds to a lot of confidence. So when you write your brand story, the first thing you have to highlight is, what is your purpose? Are you going to give something back to your reader and
Mm-hmm.
to the people who trusted your brand? Then the rest, the writers know that it is the storyline. Then what do you want to highlight? So when I did the Horseshoe Man or Decimus, if you see, they've been like, I had to clarify and work on the whole journey. So the Horseshoe Man, see, I can just talk about the brand story. The brand started like this. I said, but that's not fair.
Yeah.
So what about the people behind the brand? So it has personal things about us, our struggles. We had issues with our marriage. 7 years
Mhm.
after our marriage, I just gave him my divorce papers and I said, I can't do this. It's very difficult to live with a first generation entrepreneur, the kind of sacrifices. So I think the next thing is honesty. You have to be very honest with your reader. I mean, you can do anything in this world, but I have seen, whether it's a movie, whether it's a picture, whether it's a book, whether it's art, if you are not honest with your audience, you will never connect. So purpose, honesty, good writing, excellent editing, good publisher, all
I
that comes.
was wondering when that was going to come. Yeah.
So that's
Well,
very important.
yeah. Well, Raki, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with me today. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you and learning about how to tell your brand story. And I'm sure our viewers also have had a lot to learn from this. Well, I'm looking forward to your next few books as well. We hope to connect with you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and good luck and God bless to everybody out there. Keep the faith on.
Thank you.
Thank you.